And a very good afternoon to the Sportsfan Radio panel. Been a big week in sport, gentlemen. And let's start with, although it's a week ago now, the NFL draft. Dan, what were your takeaways from a big draft day in the US?
Hey, Mark, the thing that was most exciting about the NFL draft was, and particularly now that you've had a week to look at it, was all the quarterbacks taken in the first round. I mean, those first 15 picks were crazy, particularly for those teams that were desperate for quarterbacks. And not only that, but how Mac Jones, the quarterback from Alabama, the quarterback that the New England Patriots coveted, actually slipped to number 15. He was projected to be potentially go to number 3 to the San Francisco 49ers, and he slipped to number 15 right in the hands of Bill Belichick. And it could be his next Tom Brady project out there. So it was really an exciting first 15 picks of the draft. And then pretty much after that, there wasn't much excitement left in that respect. But I'm excited to see, as you may recall, they often in the NFL talk about the 1983 draft class of quarterbacks, the John Elways, Dan Marinos that were in that draft class. What these five quarterbacks in the top 15 will do once they get playing in the NFL. It's going to be exciting to see.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan. Did I actually see Belichick smile, or was that an optical illusion?
Well, I think he did smile. I think that was, his smile was probably like somebody else jumping for joy. I mean, to see him smile was probably the most you're going to get out of him. But I thought it was really funny as Mac got drafted and they watched him walk, and then you see social media posts put Bill Belichick's walk up against Mac's walk, and they were almost the same exact style walk going up to the podium. So it was like, man, this seems like a match made in heaven for the New England Patriots.
He almost ripped his hoodie off and waved it around his head like John Elways did once in a Socceroos shirt. He was that pumped.
That he was. I mean, wouldn't you be as well? I mean, shoot, you're a quarterback, and usually when you're a first-round quarterback being taken, you're being taken by a team that's desperate, that's been a terrible season, and they're just desperate for a quarterback. And you're walking onto a team that's won a number of Super Bowls over the last 20 years with a head coach that seems to know how to coach. So I'd be ecstatic as well if I'm being drafted by the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Dan, the Jets again took a quarterback. They had the number 2 pick in the draft. How many times can you pick a quarterback and just miss? Because they've done that innumerable times.
Marco, this is one that, as they say, every time they draft a quarterback, this is a great quarterback. We're excited with this pick. They're always going to be high and mighty on this pick. And this is where it really comes down to, the culture of the program, the culture of the team and the coaching staff. It seems like Zach Wilson's a pretty good quarterback. Everything that I've seen on him has him highly rated. Obviously has some success at BYU and BYU plays some of the toughest competition in college football because they're an independent and they go out and try to schedule the toughest games they can schedule as part of that. So it seems like a really good pick. He comes from a cold weather climate there in Utah, and to be able to be the number 2 pick and go to the Jets. I think the biggest knock I heard on draft night was, obviously this is a guy from very small town Utah that played at BYU, which is in Utah, and going to the largest media market in the United States in New York. How big of a challenge is that going to be for him dealing with the New York media? But I'm hopeful. It'd be great to see the Jets come off the carpet and actually have a decent quarterback, have a decent team moving forward, because the Jets really haven't done much since Joe Namath was the quarterback.
Well, Dan, we can go back to Mark Sanchez, who was drafted with a very high pick. And then a couple of picks after that, or a couple of years after that, they go for another quarterback because Sanchez didn't work out. Just think how many good players the Jets would have if they weren't continually wasting their first pick in the draft on a quarterback.
Yeah, I 100%, Mark, agree. And obviously they hope that they found a quarterback. It's just flabbergasting that even with the draft and free agency, they haven't been able to find that leader to take them into the playoffs, take them in any kind of run. And again, this is a New York media market. This is a New York market that has a lot of resources, has a lot of money sitting there, but they just can't seem to outpace the Giants.
Yeah. Now, controversy and Aaron Rodgers at times seem to go hand in hand. Was it payback that on draft day this year, it was announced that there'd been a huge fallout between he and the Green Bay Packers, and he didn't want to play for the Packers anymore because it's 12 months to the day since they took with their first pick in the last draft, the quarterback.
Yeah, he definitely rattled some cages and took the media spotlight for draft night. No doubt about that, Mark. I mean, announcing that he wanted a trade. He was fed up with the organization. I mean, this is an MVP quarterback coming off an unbelievably great season at Green Bay. And to basically state you're done and you want to be traded definitely took the spotlight off the NFL draft. But it created a lot of media frenzy for the 49ers, for the for the Las Vegas Raiders, for the Denver Broncos, and teams that are sitting out there looking for quarterbacks and still hope. It's amazing after the draft. There's still a lot of articles about where Aaron Rodgers will end up. The Green Bay's come out and said they want to make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. But obviously that's just hovering over Green Bay right now until they either settle it and Aaron Rodgers comes out and says, I'm good, or until they trade him. And it's getting to that point where they may just have to trade him and move on. I mean, whether it's draft picks and players or what they're going to have to do to make it happen, Mark, it's going to be interesting. I know you and I talked about it a little bit offline over the last week, but it's going to be very interesting to see who Aaron Rodgers plays for next season.
You'd have to agree, Dan, he's gone.
I would tend to think so, Paul. I think you're in a position there that this is one that there's just a lot of animosity there, a lot of angst, and I think it puts Green Bay in a negative position trying to trade him at this point because they know that they got a disgruntled quarterback. But I agree. I think this is at that point. It's a Brett Favre situation. It's time to move forward and trade him and get some value out of him while he's still got some life in him.
I think too. I mean, it's not a criticism, but you've got an ego the size of Texas there. You need that, I think, to be a quarterback. Once that ego is bruised, I don't think you can recover by paying him more money or trying to appease him. I think the damage is done.
Absolutely. And particularly in his situation, Paul, he's in a position he really wants to win a Super Bowl. And I think he kind of sees that Green Bay may not be in the best position at this point. So he can look at teams that are sitting out there that may have that opportunity. And it seems like there's been a lot of news about Las Vegas and Denver might be the two best options for him at this point.
Yeah. Where do you think he'll go, Dan?
I keep hearing Las Vegas, Mark. That's why I keep hearing. I'm hopeful that he goes to Denver. I'd like to see my Denver Broncos pick up a pretty solid quarterback. I know they picked up Teddy Bridgewater during the offseason here, but this is a Peyton Manning opportunity for the Denver Broncos if they can get Aaron Rodgers for 2 or 3 years towards the twilight of his career and get some of the best football out of him. They've got a really solid defense. They've got a great core of receivers. I'd love to see him go to the Broncos, but I've seen stories recently that he may be favoring the Raiders.
How many years does he have left, Dan? Would you think? You said 2 to 3.
37. He's 37. Just came off an MVP year. David, I think he's in a good position. Seems to be healthy. He can still throw the ball up and down the field. As long as you got some protection around him, I think he'll be at least 3 or 4 more years he could have as part of his career.
Question, Dan. Green Bay already went through this with Brett Favre. So they've got a blueprint for how not to do it. And they've done it again. Now, how silly or ridiculous is that?
Well, it's the crazy thing, Mark. It worked. I mean, they let Brett Favre go. Brett played well for the Vikings, and Aaron Rodgers steps in and plays pretty well for the Packers. Maybe they're in that position right now that they feel that Jordan Love is their quarterback of the future. And again, if they can get some value for him, as you and I talked about, I mean, if he wanted to go to the Broncos, what would that look like? And it could be a couple first-round picks and Von Miller. It could be that type of package. And I think Green Bay would jump at that opportunity at this point.
Okay. One thing we can't do without finishing our look at the NFL, Dan, I picked up on the wires during the week the retirement of Alex Smith. The number 1 pick in the draft, in the same draft that Aaron Rodgers fell to the Green Bay Packers. There was a discussion about whether Rodgers or Smith would be the first pick. And with your involvement at the Mountain West, Alex Smith came out of Utah, if I remember correctly.
That he did.
And went the number 1 draft pick. Then San Francisco, then finally with Washington, and some horrendous injuries to his leg. but managed to come back. Does it surprise you that after fighting through all of that, he's decided to retire?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, obviously, getting up there in age and the seriousness of the injuries that he had coming into this season, I think he wanted to prove that he could be an NFL quarterback coming off the injuries that he had, and he did prove that this year. He's extremely bright. He's got a great future, no matter what he decides to go into, whether that's broadcasting, whether that's coaching, or something outside of football. He's got a tremendous future ahead of him. But no, it doesn't surprise me. Alex is a quality human being. Like you said, he played at Utah when I was in the Mountain West Conference. But I think he wanted to end on his terms versus another team's terms, or have to go in and compete to be that number one quarterback again. And I think he did what he wanted to do and ended his career the way he wanted to end it.
I read that he had an interview with Urban Meyer at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who asked him whether he would think of not retiring and play with Jacksonville, probably to mentor their number one draft pick. But he decided that he wasn't going to do that.
Yeah. It comes to that point again. He's entering it on his terms, and who knows? Urban may bring him on as a quarterback's coach or a special assistant, some kind of coaching position there if he has interest in going that direction.
Yeah, so there'll be life after playing. Well, that'd be good for him.
Absolutely, he's got a bright career, whatever he chooses.
All right, thanks, Dan. Paul, round 9. We can't get past the start of round 9. Something that you're probably still having help with, and that's Storm showing exactly how good a team they are. 52, the Rabbitohs 0.
50, that's 50-0, not 52. Don't give them any more. Thank you, Professor. But it was quite a win. I was wondering at the time, watching that, what else I'd rather watch. I flicked around the channels. That movie Saw was on. I think I'd rather be in the show as one of the victims of that movie Saw than watching that performance. I did say to a mate we could lose by 50 given our injuries. And he said to me, you should have bet on it because I could have retired. But we were absolutely atrocious. But Wayne Bennett summed it all best, that we didn't play hard enough to get any more injuries. So there you go. I did like a tweet midway through the match that Michael Slater had asked the Australian government to get the Rabbitohs out of the stadium because it was just a massacre. And it's appropriate we're owned by Russell Crowe because his best role was gladiator. We felt like we're in the stadium there with the Lions, the way the Rabbitohs were going. But all credit to the Storm. Josh Addo-Carr, it's a shame for the Storm. He's going to the Bulldogs, your dogs. 6 tries. Do you want to know when that was last done, Professor? 1951. And I never thought we'd mention Newtown Jets Jack Troy, if you don't mind. So 6 tries from him. It actually takes me back, that performance, to 1991 when we played against the Seagulls. They don't exist anymore, but we lost by a similar scoreline. And the hardcore Rabbitohs fans actually started cheering for the Seagulls. We were that bad. We made Peter Gill look like Bradley Clyde that day. So that's how I felt. No team has ever come back from a loss that big to win the premiership. So it really put a dent in any aspirations that we had. But you've got to focus on the Storm. They were absolutely amazing. It's a shame for them that the Josh Addo-Carr's going. Very intriguingly, Professor, Brandon Smith, who's cracking the shits, cracking the sad, because he can't start at number 9 with Harry Grant there. Inadvertently, perhaps coincidentally, perhaps not coincidentally, was seen at a cafe with the Bulldogs coach. So if you can get Brandon Smith at number 9, you've got Addo-Carr on the wing, and then Matt Burton from the Panthers, you're going to have a very different team next year. Now, the Storm aren't impressed with that latte and croissant. It was all apparently inadvertent, but read into it what you like. So leading into the Panthers, they also did a demolition job on the Sharks. It looks like it's going to be a Panthers-Storm grand final on what I'm seeing. Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai will be the New South Wales number 6 and 7. We'll be watching that game at the MCG. And Jerome Luai is having some sort of season. No one has started 9-0 since the Storm in 2012. So it's one of the best starts, reminiscent of your Demons, Professor and Coutta. So absolutely amazing. Another great performance was the Eels. They beat the Roosters 31-18. I do have to give the Roosters enormous credit for their heart that was shown. Trent Robinson's did a Ricky Stewart. His head almost exploded because there were knees to the ribs and it wasn't picked up by the bunker, and the guys ended up with a punctured lung in hospital with broken ribs. So how the bunker didn't spot that, I don't know.
Paul, can we go on? Can we go on with that one, Paul? Though that particular incident, they picked up the shoulder charge on Tedesco, and awarded a penalty for that. The play went on, and as he said, the Lewis Brown, I think it was from
Dylan Brown.
Dylan Brown, sorry, slid in with the knees.
Typical. Sorry.
Slid in with the knees, and as he said, broke the ribs, possibly punctured lung. I'm not. Has that been confirmed? But he was in hospital 15 minutes later, and 20 minutes later they've said, oh well, he's now on report, and couldn't use the 18th man replacement.
Maybe they needed the punctured lung confirmation, but I was reading about the bunker, 57 monitors they have in there. I've got one monitor in my place, and I could see that if that happened in the UFC, that people would cringe. And he's come in with those knees and just gone whooshka, and Trent Robinson has every right to complain about that, because that was foul play of the highest order. You have to give the Roosters credit for the way that they stood up, but he didn't mess the bunker. He called them incompetent and ridiculous, which is fair enough. I'd call them a lot worse than that if I was coaching the Roosters. So they could win by the Eels. They should have won by 50, the Eels, but the Roosters showed a lot of courage, a lot of heart. So you've got to give them credit for that. But they're gone for the year with those injuries, and you just got to admire their fight. I did tell the professor the Raiders were specials, and they were at 16-0 up. You would have cashed your chips in at 16-0 up at home in any year gone by. Somehow they've lost to the Knights, who didn't have Mitchell Pearce. 24 unanswered points they've put on the Knights in Canberra, and it just doesn't happen. The Raiders have leaked 93 points to 8 in the second half over the last 5 weeks. They haven't lost 5 in a row since 2014. You can almost, Professor, we're a third of the way through the season, put a line through them. They've got a halfback that wants to go home to England. They've got a captain who doesn't want a captain. And you can put your line through the Tigers as well, and the Sharks. They're all gone. And unfortunately, Professor, your Dogs will have to look forward to next year. But that's the red pen action for this week. The Tigers and the Titans, that was a woeful game from the Tigers. They would have won that in years gone by. Titans are into 7th position. David Fafita with some discipline issues, but we're still waiting on Cameron Smith's call whether he wants to join the Titans. If he joins them mid-season, only half his salary will have to go into the salary cap. So watch this space. I think it could still happen. Then we had the Cowboys and Broncos. I watched that whole game. Very entertaining match. That was the local derby, or the Queensland derby. Brilliant effort by our man Valentine. I've got a dream Holmes. He kicked the field goal to win it. It was a very, very good game of rugby league. I don't think John Grisham would craft something as thrilling as that. It really had everything, twists and turns. Kyle Felt with his touchdown, Dan's inspired me, with his try. He reached over 4 blokes and has pinned it down. So it was one of the better tries you'll see. The Broncos are on the improve. I don't have a red pen through them yet. I think that Kevin Walters will be pretty happy with what he's seeing from his team, even though they lost. It was a very good game. So it really was a good game to watch, and I really enjoyed it. Whether there's enough scope for a third team in Brisbane, we'll see. That's what the NRL is strongly heading towards, is putting a third team, an expansion team into Brisbane. So until recently, when the Broncos have picked up, you'd think that's ridiculous. But the Broncos and Titans are travelling okay now. The Cowboys are rolling along. We had a new saying, Professor. Have you heard this one before, when someone put it to Todd Payton, you've won 4 out of your last 5, you might be headed to the finals. Todd Payton said, let's just hold our biscuits. I've never heard that one before. I looked online. It's certainly not been used before. Maybe it's a Kiwi expression. I don't know that he picked up over there. I haven't heard it before, Professor. Let's just hold our biscuits. But anyway, one game at a time is what they normally say. Never heard that before?
No, never heard of that before.
I don't know if it's a mixed metaphor or anyway, but one of the superstars you've got to look forward to at the Storm is Xavier Coates. He's been chased by everyone, but he's told his teammates he's off to the Storm. He could be anything, Xavier Coates. So watch this space. When he gets to the Storm, he is going to be one of the best players in the game, if not the best. I'll call it now. Very exciting times for the Storm.
Paul, can I ask, the Cronulla Sharks appointed a new coach for next year in Craig Fitzgibbons.
Yep.
They then proceeded to sack John Morris and appoint Josh Hannay. Hasn't that worked beautifully for the club?
No.
Like boards should actually sack themselves.
Yeah.
Because they were pathetic the other night and they're not playing for the coach.
No, and when he's asked afterwards, what are you going to do to fix it, he puts their hands up and says, if anyone's got any ideas, tell me. It's not exactly Anthony Robbins' level of motivation. He's asking the reporters for help. So that's how bad the Sharks are going. Craig Fitzgibbon has been waiting forever for the right head coaching role. He's going to have more work to do than Albanese to get some sort of victory out of this. So we will see what happens with that. A lot of work to do at the Sharks. I don't know if there's too many troops arriving either. He's losing his halfback to the Cowboys. That's why they were desperate to get Adam Reynolds, but it looks like the Rabbitohs' Adam Reynolds is Brisbane bound. So the Sharks are going to be panicking soon because halfbacks don't grow on trees like it appears you are at the moment, Coutta, up in a tree somewhere. So they're going to panic soon, the Sharks, because there's not many halves left. That the merry-go-round's going to stop. So it's Craig Fitzgibbon will be having sleepless nights already.
All right, Paul. 2:00 this afternoon. Schooner wants to know, will there be joy for the Sea Eagles against the Warriors?
I've got joy for both you and Schooner because I think the Dogs will win in an upset at the Dragons. And I also think Manly should be too strong against the Warriors. Tom Trbojevic is in the sort of form that he was in when I tipped on air that he'd score 3 tries in an Origin match, and he duly saluted at $51, if you remember that. I think that Tom Trbojevic and Manly will be too strong for the erratic again Warriors. But
what about the Bulldogs?
Well, your dog, the Dragons are that short on troops. They've got a bloke who weighs more than ScoMo playing in the centres. I don't know what's going on there. He's a second rower playing in the centres, so there must be some issues at the Dragons with some troops. So even though
Lomax got injured.
Yeah, Lomax, their main goal kicker's out. I just think that the Dragons are depleted. My mate was getting stuck into me every week for saying they'd get the wooden spoon. He's gone a bit quiet of late since they've dropped right off the pace and are headed downwards rapidly. So your Dogs actually have shown a bit the last few weeks, Professor. Nearly $4 they are for the punters. So I think they're a good chance at an upset the Dogs.
Paul, have you put a line through Manly yet?
Oh, not at all. Not with Des Hasler and not with Tom Trbojevic. I wouldn't do that. And most importantly, with Cherry Evans there. He's one of the few left on the halfback merry-go-round. He says he's staying, but there's a lot of talk that he could link up with his old mentor, Wayne Bennett, wherever he goes, because he loved working with him in State of Origin when Wayne Bennett pulled off that miracle last year. So that's another watch this space on the halfback merry-go-round trail. So, no, I haven't put the red pens through Manly.
Just for our punters out there, Paul, you mentioned giving me the tip, Raiders and Knights as a special. Of the 3-leg multi, the Raiders were the only leg not to salute.
Yeah, I apologise. It's been a tough week with that Rabbitohs start, so that might have knocked my confidence around a bit. I missed the dartboard completely, so I've forgotten where the dartboard is.
No, you'd understand this, Coutta. I'm surprised, Paul, that you haven't had a phone call from the gelding yet.
No, I've been blocking the calls. So yeah, no, I at 16-0 up, they would have been $1.01 if you were lucky at home. There's something very wrong at the Raiders there, and Ricky Stewart would be one of the most under pressure coaches. If his head doesn't explode first at a press conference, he might have it taken off by the board soon. I think he's got to go.
Well, I like your point that you raised there, Paul, because I've read what Ricky Stewart had to say after yesterday's game. He said, no, that's only the media who's saying that there's a problem. There's nothing wrong inside the sheds themselves. So I agree with you, Paul. That can't be right.
It's like Greg Chappell when he said, "I'm hitting the ball very well. I just keep getting out." There's a real problem that with that much talent and to have your halfback wanting to go home to freezing cold England, it's up there when Sam Burgess was here and he was living in Russell Crowe's penthouse, the best in Australia, on big money and living, obviously enjoying the Eastern suburbs. And he said, "I'm enjoying myself here." And I thought, if you're not having fun, Sam, you rather than icy cold England, there's something very wrong. But George William from the Raiders, he wants to go home. So normally playing in the pinnacle of rugby league, you'd be pretty happy for a couple of years. But there's something wrong at that club. And I think Ricky Stewart's got to start looking in the mirror.
All right. Thanks for that roundup, Paul. Much appreciated. Coutta, Ash Barty fails to win, I think, the Madrid Open, was it?
I think it was the Madrid Open overnight. She was on a fairly good winning patch there and played the same girl. I think she lost to she beat in the tournament the week before. So I think over the last 3 tournaments, they've played each other 3 times. And I think Ash might be 2-1 off the top of my head. So, but pretty good form leading into the upcoming French Open if it goes ahead.
I don't think we should take anything from it though.
No,
except that it's a glitch because she's had a terrific start to. It's April, it's May now, but she's had a terrific start to 2021 as far as her form line's concerned.
Yeah, and the clay court season, she's had a terrific start to the clay court season as well. So, from a Australian perspective, we've got a real live chance coming up in the French Open. And let's just hope that she can get through the opening rounds, and some of the seeds will. It's one of those tournaments where seeds can lose early. Not staying the bleeding obvious, but if you hang in there the first week, you certainly do get those people that have beaten the seeds. So for Ash, just win ugly the first week, and then start finding some form, and hopefully she can go all the way and deliver us a Grand Slam.
I read an article, Coutta, about the rebirth of Kokkinakis.
Yeah.
Tanasi. Are you buying into that he could be anything?
Well, he'd always promised to deliver it as a junior. And then obviously when he came out in senior ranks, he's had injuries for a majority of his career. And we got to see a little glimpse of the Australian Open this year when he played 1 doubles with Kyrgios, but also a qualifying run to make the main draw. He is a very talented tennis player. He might be just one of those players that never gets a really good chance because of injury. Rebirth, Paul, is probably one of those things, isn't it? How long does it take for the rebirth? Is it a couple of tournaments, or does there have to be a certain number, like 10, to say, well, he's been able to survive, he's won some matches, he's got through to the quarters, whatever it is. So I would love to see him go okay, and but at the end of the day, it is a pretty grueling career. It's a pretty grueling campaign, and if he survives, or if he gets through the injuries, we've got a player that can be top 20 in the world.
Well, because they lumped him in with when they said he's about to fulfil his potential, he's about to deliver with Bernie Tomic. All Bernie's delivered is speeding tickets and a home video.
Yeah, and Kyrgios obviously had some issues around being compared to Bernie.
Well, he wasn't up for that at all. I don't blame him.
No, Nick didn't take that too kindly. So I think, not sure who said it, but I don't think they'll be invited to any press conferences very shortly with Kyrgios.
I did like that his first response was, has he set up a foundation? Like, that's his greatest achievement. I'm all for charity, but he didn't sort of point to his playing record or anything like the Nick Kyrgios Foundation. I don't know what the Bernie Tomic Foundation might be for aspiring porn stars or something, but I don't know what that would be in aid of.
Yeah, I thought it was a strange first response about the foundation, because you don't do it for that reason. Like, you do it like so many of the players do have their own foundations. And if we look at one of the more high-profile foundations in Australia recently, was Shane Warne's, and we all know how that went. So, it was a strange response from Nick, and I wonder if he had his time again, if he'd say it. Probably would, because that's him at the end of the day, isn't it?
Well, there might be a bit less going into the Bill Gates Foundation now. He's headed for the rocks. But anyway, that's another non-sports topic. But
Coutta, if Barty continues this way, is it possible that she could become the best Australian women's tennis player ever?
Oh, well, we love this argument, don't we? Who's the GOAT? Like, it's one of the most, like, a conversation-wise, you look at it and it's like Jordan and LeBron and cricket, you look at Steve Waugh, and like in my lifetime as a female, she will be probably Australia's best female tennis player. Best ever. Again, we've had Margaret Court, you've had that whole era, the Daltons and that sort of ilk player back then. So she is an amazing tennis player. And the other thing with her, Professor, is that she plays doubles. She actually plays the doubles as well. So whether she will do it at the Grand Slam, I'm not sure. But you watch her play doubles and she could be the best doubles player in the world.
Okay.
As well as a singles player. She's that good a doubles player, it is frightening. Just
back to the Madrid Open. Rafael Nadal was beaten in the quarters by Alexander Zverev. Anything to take away from that, or not too much for Nadal to worry about?
I think Nadal's record at the French Open is pretty bloody impressive. So he doesn't lose too many matches on clay. And are the young bucks coming? Well, they've been coming for a while now, so I don't think there's much to worry about there with Nadal. I must say that it was great to see Alexander Popper in the Australian win some matches and beat one of the young guns in Sinner to get the chance to play Nadal on clay. But no, I don't think there's anything to worry about there. And of course, Professor, he was named is it the Laureus Sportsman of the Year?
I don't know. You tell me.
I think he was just named L'Oreal Sportsman of the Year. So I'm not sure how that award's done or the like, but yeah. So must be something behind it or something like that.
Laureus.
Who was Nadal was named it?
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't give it to Djokovic. He gave half the tour COVID. He's out. You put a line through Djokovic.
Yeah, I've just looked it up. Yeah, I've just looked it up.
Yes, he
so
was 2021 Laureus, Laureus Sportsman of the Year.
I thought he said L'Oreal, the shampoo one. Laureus,
Yeah.
what are some former winners there, Professor? You got them for us?
Yep.
Yeah.
Who else would we? You'd have Tiger on there, wouldn't you?
No, we don't have Tiger on there, but we've got
Federer.
Armand Duplantis.
Of course it is.
Lewis Hamilton, LeBron James, Robert Lewandowski. You know, some of them are household names.
Some of them are household names.
Some, yes.
Who votes? This is genuinely a question without notice, isn't it? This is. Apologise for that. This is we do
probably
love
a group of people
bear.
in tuxedos in Monaco that just sit down and pluck it out. I reckon it'd have to be in Monaco, the awards, wouldn't it?
The inaugural. So it's only been going since 1999.
Monaco.
The inaugural winner. First award was 2000. The inaugural winner was Tiger Woods.
I thought he would have won. There you go.
In fact, he won the first two.
Yeah.
Oh no! There's
Here we go.
2003, Professor. I don't think
Lance
that needs to be
Armstrong?
mentioned.
Yes.
Was it Lance?
Sure was.
There you go.
Roger Federer.
What a
won it
roll
4
call.
years.
Tiger Woods and Lance have had some good runs.
Yeah, Roger Federer won it 4 years in a row. Usain Bolt 2 years in a row. Novak Djokovic has won it in 2012. Sebastian Vettel, Djokovic again 2015-16. Bolt's won it twice. Djokovic, Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, it's a fairly exclusive club.
It's a shit award. Like I'm looking at it, and it's like you look at who it is, and it's like it's just individual. I know it's individual sports and that, but like Formula One, Michael Schumacher, and tennis, Roger Federer, and Tiger Woods, and that's really, and running. That's it, really, isn't it? It's not a.
I was going to say, just to shame judges in here with a segue into athletics with Usain Bolt, that no one knows who's going to replace him, and they're saying that the favourite for the 100 metres, Justin Gatlin, he's about 45. So there mustn't be a whole lot coming through. He's been banned about 3 times.
I've just got to also retract my last statement, Professor, Dan, and all the listeners. The awards are considered highly prestigious.
Of course, that. Yeah.
And are frequently referred to as the sporting equivalent of the Oscars. So I apologise for what I said earlier, and I retract that statement.
Thank you. Apology noted, Coutta. Dan.
The Oscars, the sporting Oscars.
Yeah, not the sporting Oscars, but the NBA playoffs are almost with us. About 68 games through this season already, and a different method of making the playoffs for some teams, in that there's I guess, copying from the NCAA, there's a play-in now.
Yeah, a little what they call the new NBA play-in tournament, May 18th through the 21st. The tournament will decide the 7 and 8 seeds this year in the Eastern and Western Conference sides of the division. So basically, the 7 seed will play the 10 seed, the 8 will play the 9 seed, and the 7 and 8 will get 2 chances to win 1 game. So giving them the benefit of that bracket. So as long as if they win 1 game, if they win the first game, they're the 7th seed or the 8th seed. If they lose the first game, they get another shot to win a game. So a little bit crazy going in there this year, Mark, but it'll create, because of the shortened season, I feel like the Lakers just won the championship and we're already in the playoffs, getting ready for the playoffs again. So yeah, because of that shortened season, they had to create a little bit of excitement going into it.
And Dan, the Lakers might find themselves in that spot too, the 7 to 10 spot. Unfortunately, of course.
Yeah, right now they're sitting right there in the 7th spot, and pretty solid in the 7th spot. They've got to get LeBron healthy and AD as well to have any shot at it. I again would be one of those teams I would not want to play in the playoffs. If they're the 7th seed and win a game and play the 2 seed, I'm not sure I'd want to play the Lakers. But that's where they find their fate at this point. And if you're looking at the potential 2-7 game as the Lakers and the Phoenix Suns, it'll be an interesting series.
Now Dan, sorry, question without notice. now that you've moved to California, are you a Clippers, a Lakers, a Warriors, or a Kings fan?
I am none of the above. I'm definitely a Kawhi Leonard fan, no doubt about that. Kawhi Leonard played in the Mountain West Conference when I was there, so I will support Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers if I had to choose any of the 4 teams. But I haven't lived in Colorado for quite a while. I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan, living in Illinois, and a Denver Nuggets fan over the last 20-something years. I live in Colorado.
So is it Bulls or Nuggets?
I would definitely be Nuggets at this point. So if the Nuggets have the best chance over the Bulls, if they can advance at all.
Dan, can I ask the MVP award for the basketball? Currently, Denver's got Nikola Jokic playing for them, who is one of the best big men that I think I've certainly seen in my lifetime as a centre. But what he actually does for that team as a centre is second to none. Now, he's in some conversation about MVP, but they're saying he doesn't deserve to be the MVP. How does that work?
It's crazy. I mean, if you look at the odds to win the MVP, he's up there. Has a great shot at doing it. It depends on how you define MVP, Coutta, in many ways. Is it the most valuable player on the team that wins the championship, or is it the most valuable player on the team, regardless of whether they make the playoffs or make the championship? I mean, Nikola Jokic obviously is the best player, one of the top players in the NBA. I mean, Seth Curry is doing everything he can with a great stretch coming down here. Joel Embiid with Philadelphia and the 76ers, and obviously Giannis in Milwaukee. I mean, you look at those 4 players. Man, I'd love to have all 4 of them on my team. But Jokic definitely should get that opportunity this year, based upon the way he's played all around.
And overnight, Russell Westbrook tied the league record for triple doubles. And I think he's 50 years of age, Russell, but he just seems to keep getting better.
Yeah, his stats today. In fact, I think he might have broke it today. I may be wrong. Maybe he just tied it today. But yeah, his stats today were crazy. 22, 19, and 15, I think, were his stats today. It just goes to show that you give the ball to any NBA player, if they're trying to break a record or do something spectacular and their team knows it, Jordan trying to score 100 or anything like that, they just give him the ball, let him play. And obviously he may be 100, Coutta maybe 50, whatever you called him. But, he obviously has proven he can still play in the NBA.
Here's a fun fact for you, Dan. You're talking about Giannis. He's averaging more assists per game, steals per game, blocks per game, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, and has fewer turnovers per game than in last year's MVP season. How is he going to be beaten by anybody?
That's it all, again, depends on how you define the most valuable player, Mark. And he plays for a smaller market team. Obviously, he's one of the top 5 players in the NBA right now, consistently. Based upon those stats, it would be hard to vote against him. But just looking at the way teams have played this season and the way some of these players have played, the vote may be swayed. You never know. It's crazy when you throw that stat out there. It's crazy to think that people would vote against him.
Okay, well, we look at MVP, and that's who is the most valuable player for that team.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a name that hasn't been mentioned today. What about Chris Paul, given how the Phoenix Suns have gone? He's averaging 16.3 points per game, 4.6 assists, 8.9 rebounds. They're 47 and 18. Last year, before they got him, they were 26 and 39 before the bubble. Surely that improvement can be partially placed at Paul's feet. That's fairly good credentials for an MVP, I would have thought. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't disagree, but it's interesting as you look at the odds for who's going to win the MVP on the various sites that are out there. Chris Paul is anywhere from number 3 to number 10, as an MVP candidate in the odds, the betting odds to win the MVP award. So again, you look at what he's done to make that team great this season. Worthy candidate, no doubt about it, but I don't think he gets the vote.
So it'd be worth $1 or $2 at very good odds, just in case he got up.
Yeah, just in case, it wouldn't hurt. But again, given the players that we've already talked about, it's going to be a challenge for him. But I think he will get some votes again because of what the Phoenix Suns have done this season. That was a team that's been terrible over the past 10 years, and they are a contender right now in the Western Conference.
Okay,
Of course, that we promote responsible gambling. Nikola Jokic is $1.05 to win the MVP. Which someone must know something, Dan, because that's not what's being talked about, is it?
No, it really isn't. But you look at all these odds to win and those type of things. I mean, he right now is the top guy based upon all the different sites that you look at to win the MVP award at this point. I mean, it's these are sites that are updated daily to take a look at. And right now, he's definitely the number 1 contender.
Dan, we can't leave the NBA without looking at the Eastern Conference. We spent a fair bit of time on the West. And my Knicks, 37 and 30. Who would have seen that coming?
Definitely not anybody on this panel. Let's put it that way, Mark. Crazy though. I mean, we've over the years have had a lot of fun at the unfortunate behest of the New York Knicks, but right now the 4th seed in the NBA playoffs if it were be held today. So wake up, New York. I mean, the Brooklyn Nets right now may be the team favored to win the NBA playoffs this year. The East is probably a little bit stronger than the West is right now. And as you said, the New York Knicks playing well. They actually have a winning record, 37 and 30. So I feel like the world, maybe the apocalypse is coming. Maybe COVID has caused the entire sports world to turn around in the United States. I don't know what's going on. in the ABA right now. It's just crazy how the teams that have been awful are at the top, and some of the players that are 50 years old are getting triple double records. It's just crazy.
You mentioned go on, Coutta.
Is Spike Lee a little bit happier with the world? Is he, Dan?
Yeah, I think he's still slapping the hands of Reggie Miller on the sidelines. I mean, again, it's just the way the apocalypse COVID world has been this year. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's definitely a very happy Knicks fan at this point.
When you say the apocalypse, no offense to the other panelists, Melbourne Demons are undefeated.
Yeah,
I'll say that again. The Melbourne Demons are undefeated. So when did that last happen, Coutta and Professor?
I can tell you the last time that Melbourne started a season 8-0 was 1965.
And you were how old?
I was 9 years old.
There you go. You don't look a day over 20 months.
It. And Paul, the spectre of that season, Melbourne starting 8-0, and in those days there were only 18 matches played for the season, so there were only 10 more games to go. Melbourne did not make the finals.
I didn't want to jinx you.
No, well, so I said to somebody today that I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Was that about the time you started growing the moustache? I just couldn't imagine you without a moustache, like Tom Selleck.
Thanks very much. Much appreciated. I saw during the week, gentlemen, that cricketers, as well as the Olympians, have been termed to be essential outbound Australian travellers, and that is why they are entitled to jump the queue for vaccination ahead of other people. It took me to looking at the definition of essential. Essential is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as absolutely necessary. How can cricketers going to another country be absolutely essential for Australia?
I'm going to go.
Michael Slater, though, is the only exception, isn't it? I think ScoMo said he can't get vaccinated. He can stay in the Maldives.
I'm going to put myself on mute here because it's seriously the last week and listening to Michael Slater and his campaign, but then the other side of all this, and we talked about it last week, is Pat Cummings and what an absolute star he is for Australian cricket, but also for Australia. And the way that he's handled the situation, like some of the players got out. So we know that some of the players got out as soon as they could. Others stayed there. Davey Warner were having pictures of his daughter sending cards and all sorts of stuff. Like, are they the most entitled group of people, the cricket team? Like, they just, and the comment, like Michael Slater, isn't he currently isn't he already in the Maldives?
He's in a hammock and he's saying how bad life is, and there's people dying in the streets in India.
Yeah, like, so this is a bloke that is a horrible commentator, played cricket at one pace, and his mouth works at the same pace as what a cricketer he was. There's no filter, there's no defence, and he just goes off tap.
They do say, though, Professor, that the Australian cricket captain is second in importance only to the Prime Minister in terms of the importance of that sport to the Australian psyche. But whether that allows them to jump the queue, I wouldn't think so, surely not.
Yeah. How do you think, panel, how do you think that resonates with the rest of the population, though, who have gone through their own traumas to see sportsmen and women given, I don't know,
preferential treatment?
Preferential treatment, yes, sorry. Yes, preferential treatment. How do you think that resonates?
Well, I had some sympathy when at the non-entitled end of the spectrum, John Millman said, I don't want to go to these countries, but I have bills to pay, a mortgage to pay, a family to support. He's the sort of type that perhaps could need a vaccine for his profession, as opposed to just a carte blanche, you can all get it because you play a popular sport. That would be different there. That would be a professional needs exemption, but the cricketers could argue that's what they need as well.
Dan, oh, sorry, Coutta.
What? But so, can the Olympics possibly proceed? Like, things have changed since the last week when we actually talked about the Olympics. I think it might have been a fortnight ago. Sorry. So, since then, obviously, India's blown up with regards to the number of COVID cases and tests, and obviously, unfortunately, deaths as well. But how can the Olympics go ahead, or does that country just not go?
It's funny, Cooter, I was just thinking about that a few minutes ago as we're talking about necessity, essential travel, those type of things that I would anticipate we would be talking about the Olympics, and you led right into it. That's the first thing I thought. India, I don't see how India sends any of their teams over. They got more important issues to worry about right now, and you're a couple months away from getting your teams over there. I mean, I know the United States teams are all prepping. They're all looking for practice sites ready to head over to Japan. So again, it's crazy that we're looking at the Olympics. We're talking about the Olympics. You talk about essential travel, Mark. Obviously, sometimes governments see sport as entertainment, and as people are sitting home trying to quarantine, those type of things, it's entertainment for people to watch, not necessarily focus on the competition or the true needs of the country in that respect. It is crazy to think that sports is essential travel, particularly with Australians, when you're all struggling to get the vaccines over there and trying to stay healthy and, doing the things you got to do. But I just shake my head, Cooter, on the Olympics. I know that these athletes only have a finite amount of time in their careers. I mean, particularly gymnasts and some of these other ones that, another year of waiting is going to be a detriment to their career and potential. But again, we're still dealing with this pandemic. It's not going away. And you see what's happening in India. That could blow up in any country in a heartbeat right now. And we don't know if this is like the flu or a cold in that respect too, guys. I mean, this is a virus. You may get vaccinated, but this could come right back around pretty quick. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, Dan, you make some good points. I think the thing that we've got to say is that in your country, the rollout of the vaccine has been horrendous.
Yep.
In our country, it's been less than good. Targets missed, people not vaccinated. I think it's a poor time to be starting to put people up the queue when everybody's wondering when they're going to be vaccinated.
No, 100%, Mark. I mean, obviously here in the United States, where the vaccines are readily available. I mean, you could drive up at a pharmacy or a baseball stadium if you wanted to right now and get the vaccine. I saw even a soccer stadium today had the opportunity for fans walking in could get the vaccine as they're going into the soccer stadium today. So there are plenty available here. I'm hopeful that we can start shipping vaccines elsewhere, to allow more of the world to get vaccinated, because we're getting to the point now where people that want the vaccine have gotten it. People that don't want the vaccine aren't going to get it. So why not help out others that need it?
Imagine that, Professor. You go to the MCG and you get a vaccination with your 4 and 20 pie and your beer, mid-strength beer. Imagine that.
Well, shoot, Paul, it takes you less time to get a vaccine than it does to
hot
go through a
dog.
metal detector. I mean, you got to go through a metal detector. You take everything out of your pockets and you go through the metal detector. I mean, they could stick you with the vaccine in no time, give you the card, and you're off. So that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
we can only hope.
Yeah.
But Professor, the other side of this as well is that over the last couple of days, they've now started talking about overseas and international travel not being until the end of 2022, and here we are talking about the Olympics. I think there's just so many things. You just go, like, are we just getting our priorities wrong? Like, I love the Olympics. I reckon the Olympics it's one of the great sporting events every 4 years that you look forward to.
Oh,
You get to see.
Don't let the judge hear you say that. He'll disagree with you.
Oh, he's trying to buy St Kilda Footy Club at the moment, or the Australian Sporting Commission, or whatever his latest crusade is. But you get to see some of the world's best athletes that you never get to see normally, and in sports that you probably never get to see normally either. It's fantastic. Oh, yeah, it's compelling viewing. But is it going to be compelling viewing this year? I doubt it.
But isn't it always the same as we say on Sportsfan? Don't we want from our officials, whether they be government or sporting, that we want certainty and we want consistency? So for goodness sake, if you're going to make decisions, let the population know that there's going to be some consistency to what's done and some certainty, because it just seems to me, oh no, we're going to make decisions on an ad hoc basis, and okay, if we try to look to see whether there's any consistency, and there's not, which is why we all struggle with, oh, I wonder why they made that decision, because it certainly doesn't accord with, you were saying, Coutta, we can't travel internationally till 2022. The borders are closed to international travel till we don't know when. But no, sports people can come in and go out whenever they like. Or politicians seeking employment in other countries. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
They're making the NRL bunker look consistent.
Well, Jets, it comes down to they may have the Olympics. They may say we're going to have it, but how many countries here over the next month are going to say we're just not going? I mean, again, you're a month away from probably making that commitment, and it's going to be interesting to see how many people actually say they're going.
Well, Dan, it's interesting because not many countries have the great man John Coates as the head of the AOC. So we'll be there no matter what, because he needs his gravy train. Bloody being stoked right up, there's John. But
here's a question without notice to you, Coutta. Will the Olympics not proceeding be like a certain football competition, seeing the writing on the wall with whether it could proceed or not last year?
Yeah.
Will the light eventually come on?
Or what will it take to cancel it? There you go. What would it take to actually cancel the Olympics from here on? What would it take?
Well,
John Coates to catch COVID.
And unfortunately, guys, Japan to become India, probably.
Yeah.
Well,
or does America, if it's America, pull out? Does America say we're not going to the Olympics? Or China does says we're not going to the Olympics? Or is it a country that says they're not going? Is that it? So yeah, what would it take to actually stop the Olympics?
Coutta, another one could be an athlete. The athletes may make that determination too. I mean, not that they want to end it, but that's one of the things we've seen, that athlete voice is very strong. And if all of a sudden you get some of those top athletes saying, I'm not taking the risk, that could end up, causing that groundswell as well.
Oh, and it's like Nick Kyrgios is not playing any overseas tournaments. He's made the statement, and he's sticking by that. And you respect that, because it's like it's your livelihood is one thing, but surely your life is more important than swimming up and down a pool or anyway.
Some sports people, Coutta, some sports people don't see it like that, unfortunately.
They don't, and they've worked their asses off to get to this position, I suppose, Professor. And the once a 4 years, and a lot of those competitions also haven't gone ahead over the last 12 months or 18 months. So they've probably found it pretty hard in their chosen profession, because at the end that's what it is. But I'm just not sure whether the Olympics should be going ahead.
Yeah, that endorsement money's big, Coutta, no doubt about it. When you win in the Olympics, that endorsement money's big, so that may be worth the risk.
I'll tell you one thing, panelists, and I was at the game last night where there was only 35,000 people, but I have become exceedingly aware of how close I am to other people.
Yep.
And there is no way known at the MCG that even with a crowd like that, anyone is 1.5 metres apart. And standing at a queue at a concession stand hasn't changed. Now, okay, we don't have the COVID problems here at the moment because we've got the disease under control. But my crikey, if there was an outbreak in the community with one of these sporting events, it would really become a super spreading event. There was no doubt about it, because I just looked at how close I was in contact to other people last night. COVID, the idea of COVID doesn't exist in the members' reserve at the MCG.
No, the members, as soon as you walk in the members, it's immune, is my understanding. So as soon as you walk through those barriers, attendants at the front, you're immune to getting COVID.
It must be. Now Dan, given Melbourne's 8-zip start. Have you jumped off Richmond's bandwagon onto Melbourne's bandwagon?
Nope, I'm still on Richmond's bandwagon, particularly now that I've heard that last time they started at 8-0, they didn't win with the Demons. So I think I'll stick with my Richmond Tigers.
Talk about sink the boots in. Jeez. All right.
And Professor, it'd be very remiss of us not to mention yesterday's racing. And before I get there, Paul, the Xavier Coates announcement's just been made, I'm led to believe.
Yep, off to the Storm.
Yeah, off to the Storm. So that's a fairly handy addition to replace young Josh Addo-Carr. But we can't let the yesterday's racing go, Professor, with regards to the female jockeys that rode yesterday at Caulfield. Jamie Carr won 5 of her 6 rides. She did have 7, but one of them was scratched, unfortunately, for the...
That would have been another winner for her, I reckon.
Well, she rode beautifully. And then the other one, Laura Lafferty, won a race. And so out of the 9 race meeting yesterday, 6 were won by the women and 1 well.
Yeah, it just goes to show the quality of women who are riding in professional racing at the moment.
And you're there yesterday with non-racing people who normally don't go, but everyone knew who Jamie Carr was and everyone was in awe of the way she rode the horses. So she's doing a hell of a lot good for the sport and actually proving that she belongs.
Would she be in line for a Laureus Award, perhaps?
Well, it's a very good point you raised there, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, she'll win the Metropolitan Challenge, Professor. And she would win the Scobie Breesley as well, I'm assuming.
I would have thought so. Good segue, Coutta. The Geldings phoned in his selections today at Ballarat.
Just 1 second, thank you.
Race 3, horse
Race
8,
3.
Oxy Frida.
Yeah, yes.
That's a special for you, Paul. He's giving you back that one for yesterday.
Right.
Race 8, horse 12, Safeway. That's for Dan because Safeway stores in the US.
Yeah.
And race 9, horse 7, Tarimia. So he says all of those will win. He had a pretty good day yesterday. He picked 5 from 6, so that's not bad. They were all Jamie Carr's rides as well. All right, panel, well done today, and I look forward to talking with you all next week.
Great to see you,
Good afternoon.
Have a good one.